Good evening, everyone. If I could have your attention, we're going to go ahead and do our opening invocation, with Pastor Brad Mendenhall from World Harvest. Thank you.
Well, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we do pause for this brief moment just to recognize your lordship here over our lives and, Lord, over this community, Lord God. Lord, it's hard to believe that the summer's gone and it is now time to enter back into the school session. So we do humbly ask for your hand to be upon our teachers, administration, Lord, all of our students, Lord God, as they return back to the classrooms, Lord God. Father, in these crazy times that we're living in, we do ask for your protection to be around about our schools here this year. Lord, we pray for your wisdom to be upon our teachers as they impart the knowledge into the students. Lord, give our students the passion and the desire to learn and to be better. Lord, give our administrators, Lord God, just the grace upon them to lead our great school here in Enid, America, Lord God. Father, it's in all these things we ask. In your name, amen.
Brad, thanks for coming tonight, and before you leave, I did want to publicly say thank you to you and your entire church for your involvement annually with the Feed the Neighborhood program that happened again this weekend at Stride Center. I know it helps a lot of families with backpacks and supplies, and I know it also takes a lot of hard work and a lot of time and effort on your part and your church's part and a lot of money as well, but thank you on behalf of all those families. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, we will call the meeting to order with all board members present, with the exception of Colonel Smith. Please stand for the flag salute.
Please join me to pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And that will take us to item 1C, the election of officer for vice president. Do I have a motion?
I move for Chad Mance to become vice president.
Second.
A motion for Chad Mance and a second. Motion by Matt Sampson, second by Matt Lohman. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mance. Item 1D, discussion and possible action to appoint an individual to fill former board member Kyle Whitehead's unexpired term for board seat number 6. Do we have a motion from the committee? Anyone?
Make a motion to appoint Mr. Long.
Okay, motion to appoint Randy Long, made by Chad Mance.
Second.
And seconded by Matt Sampson, sorry. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries, appointing Mr. Randy Long to board seat number 6.
All right, welcome, Randy. We'll invite you to come on up here and join the board, and Matt Lohman will help you along the way there if you have any questions. So appreciate your willingness to serve on the board. And we also appreciate those that expressed interest in serving on the board, and the committee interviewed all 4 of those candidates last Thursday, and we want to say thank you to all 4 of them for their interest, and looking forward to working with Randy.
Thank you, Dr. Floyd. And that takes us to item 1E, installation and oath of office for the appointed board member. Dr. Robinson? Am I reading it, or are you? Oh, yeah, well. Okay, Mr. Long, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Randy Long,
Hereby declare under oath
hereby declare under oath
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
member of the Board of Education
member of the Board of Education
of Independent School District number 57
of Independent School District number 57
of Garfield County, Oklahoma,
of Garfield County, Oklahoma,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
all the duties pertaining to said office,
all duties pertaining to said office,
and support, obey, and defend the Constitution
and support, obey, and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States and Oklahoma.
and the laws of the United States and Oklahoma.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
push this button and talk and raise your hand.
You can touch it just once.
It'll stay on, it'll
You
stay
can
on,
touch
yeah.
it once and then
Welcome
touch it
aboard, we're glad to have you. Yeah, once the green light's on, well, then it's live, and then you push it. Oh, all right.
Okay, that takes us to recognitions. Mrs. Johnson.
Yes, this is a good recognition. Pam Schmidt is our board secretary, and she is also our superintendent secretary. And we want to recognize Pam tonight for 10 years of service to Enid Public Schools, and I'm going to let Dr. Floyd say a little more.
All right. Well, sadly, Pam's husband has taken a new job in Derby, Kansas, so she's going to be joining him up there, but not right away. She's going to stay with us for another 2 or 3 months, which I appreciate. That'll allow us to do a search for her replacement, then also give her a little time to train her replacement as well. But so by the time she does officially leave in 2 or 3 months, she will have served in the district for 10 years. We want to go ahead and recognize her. And we have a plaque that I'm going to come down there and present to her in just a minute. It says, Enid Public Schools respectfully presents to Pam Schmidt, honoring her 10 years of dedicated service to Enid Public Schools, 2012 to 2022. Thank you for your dedication, compassion, positive attitude, and invaluable support. Those skills have contributed to excellence and an overall smooth operation at the EPS Administrative Services Center. Thank you, Ms. Pam.
Thank you, Pam. And this moves us to item 2, audience to visitors, and tonight we do have a list. So before we get started with that, I will read our rules for addressing the board. In accordance with the policy of the Board of Education, the following regulation shall govern visitors attending board meetings. 1, any individual wishing to address the Board of Education must submit a request to the board president at least 5 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Number 2, all visitors who want to address the board will list their name or names on the audience to visitors request list. Number 3, the president of the board shall recognize speakers in order which their requests were received, maintain proper order, and adhere to time limits established by the board. Specifically, the board president may require all proponents of one side of an issue to elect one spokesperson. Repetitive comments by consecutive individuals will not be allowed. Number 4, without special permission, no person may speak longer than 5 minutes or more than once during the audience to visitors portion of the meeting. The president may determine a maximum amount of time to be allotted for discussion of any one subject. Number 5, board members and administrative staff will not respond to questions from the public. Proper questions from the members of the public may be referred to the superintendent for later report to the board. The board will not, in most instances, be able to vote on matters brought forward by the public during the audience to visitors time if such matters are not specific agenda items. Number 6, members of the public shall not be recognized while the board is conducting its official business. Number 7, the board shall not hear personnel complaints as issues related to an employee could require adverse employment action. Oklahoma law requires specific due process procedures to be followed. Any issues related to an employee will need to be addressed with either the building principal or the superintendent in order for the employee's due process rights not to be violated and to allow the district to be able to proceed with adverse employment action if the situation warrants. Number 8, the use of profanity is prohibited. And with that addressed, our first audience to visitor would be Kathy Reed. Would you like to step forward? Thank you.
I don't know where, there we go. It says do not adjust microphones. So I'm going to try very hard not to. I'm short. Okay, thank you. I don't want to have to use my classroom voice. Good evening, board members and Dr. Floyd. My name is Kathy Reed, and I come to you to speak this evening as the parent of an incoming senior, a former teacher, a former school librarian, and a current librarian. I believe that reading is a foundational skill critical to future learning and to exercising our democratic freedoms. I believe that we can trust individuals to make their own decisions about what they read and believe. I believe parents have the right to guide their own children's reading, but they should not be making decisions for other people's children. I believe books are tools for understanding complex issues. Limiting young people's access to books does not protect them from life's complex and challenging issues. On the contrary, from reading, young people may learn that they are not alone, or they might glean strategies to help them in their own issues. I believe removing or banning books from libraries is a slippery slope to government censorship and the erosion of our country's commitment to freedom of expression. I believe we should reject efforts to ban books and allow individuals and parents to make the decisions about what they can read and believe. I believe libraries are created and cultivated to provide information and ideas. Some I may agree with and some I may not. I believe that just because a book is on the library shelf does not mean the library subscribes to or agrees with that book or point of view. My staff and patrons often hear me say, a well-rounded library has something that offends everyone. As I cultivate my library collections, I select books for the library that I may not personally agree with. I use professional sources, book reviews, patron requests, and current book trends like the New York Times bestseller lists. I do not believe that all books are appropriate to use as school curricula. And thank you, Dr. Floyd, for reinforcing the district's reconsideration policy. By following the district policy, our Enid Public Schools can ensure that one or two adults will not be removing the students' freedom of information or the freedom to read. I am quite passionate about the First Amendment and the freedom of information, and I have lots that I would love to share with you. I could go on and on. But with respect to the time constraints, I brought along some packets from reputable sources: the American Library Association, the American Association of School Libraries, Unite Against Book Bans, and One for All. In this packet, you will find the American Library Association Rule for School Libraries, the ALA, National School Library Standards, an article by a lawyer-turned-librarian regarding what the law says on material challenges, the American Library Association Bill of Rights, and the interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights, several infographics, and a piece entitled 7 Things You Need to Know About the First Amendment. If you read nothing else in here, please look at that list of 7 things. It is quick and succinct. Thank you in advance for the time to look over these materials. I know that you all are volunteers, and I appreciate your time immensely from all the different aspects that I come to speak tonight. And thank you for your consideration to not ban books from the Enid classrooms and libraries.
Thank you very much. It'd be great.
Thank you. Your very first handout as a school board.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
While she's finishing that, I will go ahead and call Jerry Mick to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak on hopefully behalf of the other librarians and some of the other people that have voiced their concerns with me. My name is Jerry Mick, and this is my 4th year with Enid Public Schools as a school librarian, and I'm also in my 2nd year as the district lead librarian. I just wanted to take a few minutes to speak on the process of this book list and how it was forwarded to us and the positive contact that has been made in regards to this situation. Ms. Jones was the first contact that I had very quickly after I received the email, and she was very quick to respond. She was also very encouraging of establishing a meeting between the secondary assistant superintendents, and pretty well listened to every concern that I started off with. Our meeting was arranged very quickly, and in attendance was Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Rader, and Ms. Jones. In the duration of this meeting, we were able to voice every one of our deep concerns about the books, about this whole situation and taking books out of our libraries. And we asked a lot of tough questions and regards to what was asked of us, and also the implications that this situation could possibly bring. We were able to work together to make some changes that day, and since then some emails have been sent, more questions have been asked, and discussion has been had. A lot of hard discussions have been had on the whole situation. This hasn't been the easiest of first encounters with our new superintendent, nor is it an easy situation at all. But I wanted to publicly acknowledge how grateful I am for the open communication that we've had, especially with the hard questions, and especially knowing that we have such passionate beliefs as librarians. I know that I have, and as the other librarians have had. Also in that meeting was the other secondary librarians. Every email has been responded to very quickly, and even if they didn't know the answer to our questions, they were as quick as they could to get to us with any answers. I really feel like we're moving in the right direction with all the meetings and discussion that we've had with this situation. I feel like as a district, we would be following policies and procedures that were approved by this board. I also feel like we have worked very hard, myself included, in this process of coming up with our book selection policy, our challenge, the review and challenge form for parents and concerned citizens. And I feel like that if we let this process and procedure and policy work for itself, we are protecting the rights of all of our students and staff in this district. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Brings us to our next visitor, Ben Ezell.
Good evening, folks. I want to adjust the microphone, too. When I was listening to Randy get sworn in, the same oath that all of you took, part of what you swear tonight and everybody is to uphold the Constitution. And the United States Constitution is higher than your school board policy, and it's higher than whatever screwball things are done at 23rd and Lincoln. We don't get to override the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment. Not here in Enid and not in Oklahoma City. That's really not a new idea. I want to read just briefly from a Supreme Court case. This is Board of Education versus PICO. This is a 1982 case decided by, the opinion was written by Justice Brennan. Local school boards may not remove books from school library shelves simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books and seek by their removal to prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion. Just as access to ideas makes it possible for citizens generally to exercise their rights of free speech and press in a meaningful manner, such access prepares students for active and effective participation in the pluralistic, often contentious society in which they will soon be adult members. Of course, all First Amendment rights accorded to students must be construed in light of the special characteristics of the school environment, but the special characteristics of the school library make that environment especially appropriate for the recognition of the First Amendment rights of students. A school library, no less than any other public library, is a place dedicated to quiet, to knowledge, and to beauty. Students must always remain free to inquire, to study, and to evaluate, to gain new maturity and understanding. The school library is the principal locus of such freedom. So regardless of what y'all want, even a majority of you, with regard to politics or religion, you don't have a right to censor what my kids get in their school library, because they have a freedom of speech and the corollary freedom of access to information that's inherent in the freedom of speech. You guys can't take that away. It's wrong to do so. It's especially wrong to do so using a list generated by a political party referencing a House bill that hasn't passed, and I hope won't. But even if that passes in Oklahoma City, every one of you sitting up here who has been appointed or elected took an oath to uphold the United States Constitution. And that controls your actions, regardless of what gets done in Oklahoma City. Please, remember your constitutional duties. Remember the oath that Randy just took and all of you heard. And educate yourselves. Because if what you hear from the State Board of Education violates the United States Constitution, you all have an affirmative obligation to do what's right. And not what's right because they said so in Oklahoma City. What's right because that's what's in the First Amendment, and that overrides it. It's a higher legal authority. Don't limit what my kids get in their libraries. It's wrong. And we knew that in 1982, before I was born. This isn't new. This is retrograde action this week, last week. You all can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us next to Marcia Scott.
Good evening. My name is Marcia Scott. My concern is the removal of the books from the library and curriculum. I served on the Enid Public School Board for 8 years in the 90s, so I've been in your seats, and I was president 2 times. I'm also a retired advanced placement English Lit teacher. Recently, I've become aware of concerns regarding books that might be removed from the schools. My response is at first visceral, because the idea of censorship is appalling to me. I certainly believe in age-appropriate guidance. However, I remembered the Enid Public School Board has a policy and procedure regarding books. As I recall, a parent may express a concern over a particular book. The parent is then asked to complete a form which asks the child's name, age, grade, and school, and what book is being questioned and why it is being questioned. And if the parent has read the book, that's a brief summary of what I think your policy says. After submission of the form, a committee consisting of the superintendent or designee, the principal, librarian, a teacher, and parent examine the concern. Finally, the committee makes a recommendation concerning the book. Shortly after I left the board, I recall an incident in which a book was questioned. The board did its due diligence. Ultimately, the book was no longer required for the AP class, but it remained on the reading list, and if the student objected, an alternative was suggested. In the weeks that followed, an outside source came to Enid to discuss several books. The professional presented some new ideas and gave teachers valuable material and resources to use in the classroom. It was a marvelous learning opportunity for students, teachers, and the community. Finally, thank you, Board, for your service. You have the tools to address the issue on the books, and I am hoping that you will follow the policies and procedures. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to Jeannie Scott. No relation, correct?
Good evening. This week, I did have some serious concerns about our book policy, much like other people have stated. As a parent and lover of books, it's very important to me that my children have access to a wide variety of literature. Tonight, though, I wanted to thank our district administration for listening to my concerns, working to ensure that these concerns were addressed. This week, I felt heard, I felt listened to, and I really do appreciate you for that. I commend the library media specialist for creating a very well thought out policy that seeks to value the beliefs and experiences of all community members. I I hope that we follow that policy going forward, and just thank you for listening. Thank you for creating a very thoughtful procedure, and thank you for being transparent and following that procedure in the future.
Thank you. Next, I will ask Susan Shuey to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Susan Shuey. I have had 3 children go through and graduate from Enid Public Schools. I was served as a librarian at Taft Elementary from 2008 to 2016. Now, approximately 10 days ago, my phones started blowing up. Texts, phone calls, emails, telling me that a book list had been received by all of the EPS librarians, a list of 44 books to be exact, and they were directed, those librarians, to remove them from the school library media centers immediately. Teachers at Enid High School also received an email with this list as well, and were told to remove them from their classroom libraries. The title of the document, I have it right here, Oklahoma Library Books, April 2022. Linda Murphy, Chairman, Oklahoma GOP Committee on Education. Book reviewed and descriptions written by citizens of the capital L, local, capital S, school, capital D, district. I don't know exactly which school district that might be. As I read through the 8-page list of books, one thing immediately became clear. These weren't book reviews. This was sheer propaganda. And just to be clear, the definition I'm using for propaganda is this: information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular cause, a religious cause, or a point of view. After the title was listed, often incorrectly or with misspelled words, we had that list of books. The author's name was never provided. There's a lot of books out there called Prom. The creators of this document didn't really want anyone to go to Amazon and read a summary of the book and maybe actually draw their own conclusions. The propaganda about what each book focused on was providing a list of words or situations found in the book that would most likely create moral outrage, indignation, fear, etc. We've seen it before. The goal was to produce such strong emotion that people would check their critical thinking skills at the door and just react. What's so troubling to me about this list is that this propaganda stunt actually worked in the highest levels of Enid Public Schools. Someone walked into this building with the list, declared that the sky was falling and these books must come off the shelves, and it actually worked. In this instance, critical thinking was left behind, a casualty in the pursuit of a political objective, a religious belief, or maybe just in an excess of emotion and zeal. The other thing that's so disturbing to me, and others have pointed out, is that this district has a school library material selection, adoption, and review regulation policy. The current policy was approved by this board on August 23rd, 2021. I also have the minutes if you need them. This policy was completely ignored. Red flags should be going up everywhere when board members or administrative leaders in this district think they are above following the policies and procedures of the school district. Board members and administrators must be held accountable if they don't follow approved policies. Not doing so puts the district in a very, very vulnerable position. So tonight, I am asking that every single book be returned to the library shelves immediately. I believe some of this has been addressed already, until a valid request for the reconsideration of texts has been received. Now, I'm also concerned because I have spent time and I've gone to our online library catalogs and I've put in all 44 books, and a lot of the MARC records have been deleted. I don't know how many of these books we had. I doubt we had all 44. I went to the Enid Public Library website, and the library doesn't have all 44 books. Now, since the work of the authors on this list have been so maligned in this propaganda list, I thought it only fair just to share the author's note at the beginning of one of the books on the list, Crank, by Ellen Hopkins. Crank is a slang name for meth. For those of you with the infamous list, it's item number 11 on the book list. If you have the list, I invite you to compare the propaganda with this author's note. I believe you can draw your own conclusions about why the author felt it necessary to include the difficult material that is found in this book. The author's note, Crank, it's at the public library. While this work is fiction, it is loosely based on a very true story. My daughter's. The monster did touch her life and the lives of her family, my family. It is hard to watch someone you love fall so deeply under the spell of a substance that turns him or her into a stranger, someone you don't even want to know. Nothing in this story is impossible. Much of it happened to us or to families like ours. Many of the characters are composites of real people. If they ring true, they should. The baby at the end of the book is now 7 years old, and my husband and I have adopted him. He's thriving now, but it took a lot of extra love. If this story speaks to you, I have accomplished what I set out to do. Crank is indeed a monster, one that is tough to leave behind once you invite it into your life. Think twice, then think again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And this brings us to Linda Reams.
Good evening, Dr. Floyd and board members. For those of you who might not know me, because there are two people in my family that are currently teaching in the district. I have a daughter-in-law who teaches science at Emerson and a granddaughter who is a first-year teacher at your Enid High in this area in language arts. I retired in 2014 and have stayed very involved because I still have grandchildren here and I still care about what happens in this district. I began my career here in 1990 at Emerson. Oh, that's wrong. Let me go back. At Monroe, and I was at Monroe for 10 years as an elementary librarian. I recall many times with the children and the great times we had in there. For instance, Jane Johnson was a second grade teacher at that time at Monroe, and she brought her children into the library, and they had a wonderful, pleasant time. I remember the third graders that came in once, and the little boy who tugged on my shirt and pulled me aside and said, teacher, sometimes I was teacher and sometimes I was librarian, because they would forget where, who was who at that moment. He said, I have two mamas. You got a book about two mamas? I didn't at that time. That was in the 90s. But I wish I'd had for that young man. I went on to be at Emerson for 10 years, started there in 2000. During that time, I became very familiar with the recall policy or the book challenge policy. We've had this very similar policy with very few changes in the Enid Public School District since the 90s. Now, if I'm wrong on that and you find out otherwise, I'll stand corrected. But I remember going through that policy and the selection that we did and the meetings that we would have, and we would go from there. We had a very concerned parent show up and wanted a book pulled, It was on the Sequoia reading list. It did not win that year, but you're not selected. A book is not selected to be put on the Sequoia list unless it's of quality as far as literature and the subject matter is important. This was about an incident in war and the pilot crashing. And this parent was the wife of a pilot out at Vance. We asked her to follow the procedure. Quite honestly, she wasn't very happy. She wanted us just to pull the book off the shelves. However, she took her time. She read the entire book, and she filled out the form. Then she sat down with that committee, which was pretty much like the one that you're talking about using now, and we answered her questions and had quite a discussion. The resolution to that situation is she left there feeling very satisfied and said, "Don't take the book off the shelf. This is opening an opportunity for me to have that difficult discussion with my daughter." And she did from then on. At Enid High, when I was in the library there, I did not run into any situation during that particular time. However, a lot of you know from personal experience that it's very difficult when you have students at Enid High that are in a difficult curriculum, a challenging one we want them to be in, that their reading for pleasure is often a little lacking. They just don't have as much time. And once in a while I would have some kids come in, and of course those that came up from Emerson that knew me didn't hesitate to talk to me. It was getting used to the other students, having them come in and visit with me. I recall I had a boy that I just couldn't get to read anything, and he wanted to, and he had told me that he had to come home with some kind of library book that his parents had told him that he had. And at that time I believe he was a freshman, and he was still required to give a report on a book in his language arts class. I stumbled around and I gave him one, actually after he saw the title and said, what's this one about, Mrs. Reams? So I proceeded to tell him what it was about. The main character was a female, and she was dead, and she was in heaven telling this story. I didn't really think he might like that, but after visiting with him, he was very excited, and he read that book. To this day, if I run into his father and his mother, and they are both doctors here in town, they will take me aside and remind me what that meant to them and to their son, because it turned him around. They never once mentioned the topic of the book. It's on that list. It's one of my faves. All right, I've said all of that. I don't want to repeat everything else that has been said tonight. I don't have any real concerns about your policy. I am pleased with the fact that maybe you're rethinking this. I am genuinely concerned that it got to this point. I'm not saying that it's intentional, and I don't think it's important that we assign blame anywhere, but I am concerned about how that got into your hands, and you felt like it was something that needed to be taken care of. I want to end tonight with just a few quotes. They're all fairly short, but I want you to hear them. I love this one. It's by Lori Halsey Anderson, who wrote the book Speak, which is also on that list. She says, "Censorship is the child of fear and the father of ignorance, and education fights those two things all the time." Another one I want to share with you, because I bet there's lots of parents in here tonight that their children read Judy Blume books. "Something will be offensive to everyone in every book, so you gotta fight it." And then I think I would like to leave you with this last one. This was a book that you had a teacher in the district who felt very passionate about it. She loved to teach it. She'd had success, and she was a master teacher at teaching The Giver. However, when we had a meeting for that department, we were trying to figure out which novels would go for which grade, and I believe that one was shifted to another grade level, which really disappointed her. So I want you to hear what Lois Lowry, the author, said. Submitting to censorship is to enter the seductive world of the giver, the world where there are no bad words and no bad deeds, but is also the world where choice has been taken away and reality distorted, and that is the most dangerous world of all. So I leave you with that thought. I welcome any comments if any of you ever want to get in touch with me, and thank you very much for the honor and privilege of sharing my viewpoint with you tonight. Congratulations, Randy.
I know that the board members cannot respond to those comments because it's not an agenda item, but I do want to make a comment before we move on, Madam President. And first off, I appreciate everyone coming tonight and their comments. I think you make a lot of good points, from the constitutionality issue to the procedural issue, and all of that folded into the point that we got to today and tonight. So sometimes decisions and processes take place that end up being not what the intent was originally, and I think that has occurred here. And then secondly, sometimes because of that, you just have to admit when you made a mistake, or when a school district has made a mistake, and I think we did not handle this situation appropriately. That's the reason that I addressed the topic when we had opening convocation with all the employees last Friday morning, and then that's also the reason that I sent out a second clarifying email this morning to all employees, and I just want to run through the highlights of that. And basically the intent originally was not to remove all of those books from circulation, but the intent originally was to try to take a look at that list and make sure that we didn't have any books that were egregiously sexually explicit and none of us would want in the hands of our kids. I do feel confident that our librarians have done a good job in making sure that that has been the case. And then lastly, we do, as has already been mentioned several times here, we do have a procedure in place, a policy in place, and a procedure in place that if we did have a complaint on a book sometime in the future, then there is, as was stated, a procedure for them to fill out the form and then it to go through the process. And I want to thank Kristen Jones, our curriculum director, and Ms. Rhodes and others that have been involved in talking to librarians about all this over the last several days to get to the point that we are today. So suffice it to say that we did not handle this correctly. We should have handled it differently, but I appreciate the comments that were made tonight, and we'll try to do better.
Thank you to everyone that came out. Next, we move on to item 3, the superintendent's report. Dr. Floyd?
All right, mine's pretty short tonight. First up, you have a 2-page handout there in front of you, board members, and we are going to hear a report from an outfit called ESS that we are contracting with for the first time this year in regard to helping us with our trying to increase our fill rate for substitutes in the school district. Everybody knows about the teacher shortage, but there also is a significant substitute shortage, and we are not immune to that. We certainly are in the same boat with all of the other school districts. We have tried to work hard on that on our own. Now it's time for us to contract with Fred Benson and ESS and see if they can help us significantly increase our fill rates for substitutes. So Christy Laddick is in our school district now, and her office is housed right across the hall here at the end of Jane Johnson's HR department. And then this is Fred Benson. You're in Houston, right? Yep, and so he came all the way up here to talk to the board tonight, which we appreciate, and I'm going to ask them to step to the podium and walk us through this two-page handout and anything else you guys would like to share with us.
Good evening, Dr. Floyd, members of the board, administration, community. Fred Benson, Vice President with ESS. We are thrilled to partner with you all and committed to making you proud. You're a very important partner district for us, and all eyes are on this relationship. My part of this presentation is very short because I get to introduce the smart person on the team, and that's Christy Laddick. We're really, really excited to have Christy on the team. She knows Enid, she knows your community, and grew up right down the road. So Christy's going to share where we're at, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us here this evening. It's really been a pleasure starting working with the school board or with the school district throughout the summer. I know that we have been in the past having trouble getting our fill rates higher. My goal had been to reach 50 active substitutes by the end of August. As of today, which the number up there is incorrect because as of the end of day today, I have 46. And so therefore now I'm setting my goal at 100 for overall. And so I'm going to continue to work to get that. We do have 24 as of today returning substitutes that have subbed in the district in the past. So that's a great number to have of those veteran substitutes coming in. I have a very eager group of subs that are eager to get into the classroom. And just to prove that point, as of the end of today, the first 2 weeks so far we have 100% fill rate, and that includes 4 long-term positions. So I'm very happy with that. Anytime there's a spot that comes open, all I got to do is send a couple texts or emails, and within 5 minutes it's gone. So I'm really excited about their excitement to get into the classroom. The second page of the handout is kind of the way I have spent my summer, because I did come in May when school was winding down, and so I used that time for recruitment. I reached out to local churches, local businesses, used social media platforms, went to different businesses and begged to put flyers in the windows. Everyone in town has been extremely gracious, especially the businesses owned by local people. I think they really care about their schools, and so they've been very gracious as to let me put up the flyers there. Continuing to do events, we've met with the secretaries and administration of the campuses to talk about any upcoming events that I can be at and kind of pull parents in, because stay-at-home parents are one of our biggest pools of substitute teachers. And so, but as it gets closer to school, my office is busier and busier. I had a retired teacher actually come in and sit down and do the entire application process with me today, and so got her hired right up. So I like days like that, and I look forward to having more. And I'm excited for Friday for the first day of school with 100% fill rate, and we're going to keep that one going as long as we can. Thank you for your time this evening.
Christy, can you just touch base with quickly of some of the highlights that are benefits for both substitutes and those that might refer substitutes?
Oh, yes. The substitutes with ESS, one of the big perks, everyone wants to know how much they get paid and when they get paid. And so one of the advantages this year is that they are getting paid weekly. And so that's nice, them knowing that every week that they work, the next week they'll get paid for that. There are benefits available to them, 401k. There are, as far as referring anyone, even they don't have to be a substitute. Anyone can refer a substitute. I think a lot of the administration and secretaries have that information, and I've emailed it to them about referring a friend. There's a link, and they can get $100 for a successful referral. And so that's
pretty good
great
perk,
incentive to me.
Yeah, so anybody, any employee,
Yes.
for instance, could refer somebody to
Yes.
become a sub, and if they do, well, then that employee
They
gets
get
an additional
$100.
$100.
And so that's a great incentive. The substitutes that work 5 days a month, there's drawings. They're automatically put into a drawing, and there's different drawings throughout the year. The staff and administration have the opportunity, if they have a substitute that is an exemplary substitute that they would like to nominate, they can do that. And there's, definitely recognition for their hard work and dedication to the classrooms. So I'm really excited to see all of that.
Yeah, I think
go
all
into
those are
place.
positive benefits as well. Fred, you want to say a word about districts that you have been working in and maybe some of the newer ones? What number are we of districts here in Oklahoma that you are working with?
So we're supporting 6 districts in Oklahoma now. Over in the Tulsa area, we're working with Bixby, Union, Catoosa, and Sapulpa, working with y'all here in Enid, and then Lawton. We've got a partnership in Lawton that started in January, so really just a little bit ahead of y'all, and we've just had so much fun with that partnership, and that's really what we're looking for is to be a partner. I understand contractually we're a vendor, we understand that, but we don't like that word. We really want to make sure we're here and we understand your needs, and we're customizing this program to y'all. I'm sorry, I keep saying y'all. I hope that's okay in Enid.
It'll work.
It's okay?
Yeah, it works here, yeah.
And really, fill rate is the number that we always look at, and we should be proud of fill rate. And quantity is critical, and you should judge us on the quantity of substitutes we provide. You should also judge us equally on the quality of substitutes we provide. And we want to live up to that, and we want to know when we're not, because we're human too. And so we want to be quick to respond when we have someone that isn't right or at the right level, because sometimes that happens with substitutes, is that they're a fine substitute, but maybe they're better with the little ones, or vice versa. So we want to know that too. And that's harder to measure, right? It's harder to put on a graph. But it's critical to our mission, and we know it's critical to your mission, and we want y'all to be proud of that too.
Well, we know you've had good success not only in some of the districts you've been working with previously in Oklahoma, but in other states as well. And so I hope that you and both of you and ESS as a whole can be as successful here as you've been in some other places. And we're going to cross our fingers and hope that that's the case.
Hold us to that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All righty, just a couple other things here quickly. We've got the school board conference coming up here 25th through the 27th, which is not at the end of this week, but the end of next week. And I believe we've got several, Tori, Matt, and Joe. Is that it? Okay. And for the 3 of you that are attending, I don't know if you're receiving the same emails that I am or not, but I'll find those vendor emails that I've been getting, and invitations to dinner and things like that. I'll forward them to you just to make sure you got them, but you're probably getting the same ones that I am. But very positive about the school board conference is that our Enid High School choir will be performing at the first general session on August 26th at 9 a.m. So we're looking forward to that. Our band got to perform down there at the school board conference last year, and this year our choir will. So we feel great about that and looking forward to our Johnson boys and the choir doing well at the school board conference. So looking forward to that, and board members that are attending are able to get a number of continuing education hours out of the way while attending that conference. And then I hear that we've got the first day of school coming up here, or something in that neighborhood of around August the 19th. A couple things is we've already had scheduled pickups for 11th graders on August the 8th, 12th graders August 9th, and then coming up a couple days from now on August 17th, we'll have 9th graders, 10th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th, all those picking up their schedules on the 17th. Then we've got Meet the Teacher Night coming up on August 17th as well. Elementary Meet the Teacher Night will be 5:30 to 7 p.m. Secondary Meet the Teacher Nights for parents will be 6:30 to 8 p.m. So we're looking forward to that, and we are ready to crank it up with the first day of school on Friday the 19th. And I believe that's it for my superintendent report.
Thank you very much. It takes us to item 4, regular business. Item 4A, discussion and possible action to approve the following consent agenda items 1 through 7.
So moved.
Motion by Matt Sampson, second by Joe Blackwood. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Item 4B, discussion and possible action to approve the district financial report for July 2022. Dr. Robinson?
Well, for July, there is not much activity in the account for the district. I will tell you the good news, though, is that we have submitted our OCAS data. So while we don't have much to talk about on the finance side because we're just kicking off the year, OCAS data is submitted. As far as we are sitting right now, there are no errors, and I don't expect there to be any errors, which is good news for what we report to the State Department. I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Move we approve.
Motion by Matt Sampson, second by Matt Lohman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Item 5, new business. Don't believe we have any new business.
Nope.
Okay, it takes us to item 6, reports, items of information, board comments and or questions. Colonel Miller is not present, but I believe Dr. Floyd, you have a report.
Yes, I do have, he wasn't able to be with us because he is the commander in charge out there tonight because I guess the other ones are off base. But I did want to share with everyone an email that he sent me recently on August the 9th that he has already informed Dr. Murphy, the principal at Eisenhower, but also wanted to let us know that they will have some construction starting out there at the base on August the 22nd at the entrance gate, the main gate, starting on August 22nd, and that should last for about 120 days. So that's going to route everybody to the, now the visitor center will remain open, but they won't be able to get in the main gate. So that'll reroute everybody back through the other entrance at the Baker Gate side and Industrial Gate side. So that's Cleveland and Southgate Road. So that should last for about 120 days. We hope it goes a little bit quicker, but will be a little different route into the base. That's it.
Thank you. Item 6B, any board comments and or questions? I will say thank you to Kyle Whitehead for his time on the board. We wish him well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for Randy for coming forward and speaking with us. And I have to acknowledge, I think that I said Colonel Smith was not present. I just I don't know why Colonel Smith was still in my brain, but apologize, Colonel Miller, you're not here. Okay, just to correct the information. Item 7, next regular meeting, September 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Administrative Services Center boardroom here at 500 South Independence, Enid, Oklahoma. Takes us to item 8, discussion and possible action to approve a proposed executive session to discuss the proposed termination of Maria Cartwright as authorized by Oklahoma statute Title 25.
That item specifically will not be necessary because we got a resignation from that employee.
Apologize. Employment of those individuals and or positions listed on the attached Exhibit A and Exhibit B, possible purchase or appraisal of real property, and pending or possible litigation. Do I have a motion? Motion by Joe Blackwood.
Second.
Second by Chad Mance. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We're headed to executive session.
Righty, thank you.
I made my notes to not say that down here, not up here.
I know, I should have pointed that.